I was about the POG political headline so and then so yasa jibre at the end at the ama Ghana form so POG so and I say my Ghana say the political headlines need the about someone I'm some who the echo and the air banning now and I bought at the Ryan say man just a ball at the ra NLA national lottery authority a whole akachina just say yes to your ball at the ra expose and I know that the fourth estate and so at the bar bonten yes estate ya na say company and so ho at the ma nkofo asebe omedi dem ehiafo sebe ene oma omuni bie na offense and I just almost call myself no to di mo na kame akoye say NLA mremu no sikabia and I say some percentage bi o ho sika a ɛwɔ NLA wɔ no yɛsɛ bi so ɛbɔ adwura saa nkɔfokuo yi akache na emom S.Awuku nso ɛtumi de sika no ɛma nkɔfo foforɔ bi a ɔmo nso expose no ho nsɛm no ɔmo nso ɛtumi bobɔ saa nkɔfokuo yi di na wena nsɛm yi abɛtɔ dwa ama amanfoɔ atwe ne srɛ ne abasa na S.Awuku aba abɔnten de abɛtɔ dwa sɛ saa nsɛm a anaasɛ saa expose yi na akyɛ sɛ fourth estate foɔ nso ɛde abɛgu media no so no anaasɛ highway no so no no query biara enim state for no almost aba back and so ababe reply S.Awuku at some hard evidence and so at the ababe good at the same kofuku ama bobo mudin wo expose and ye enkofu keto abujama say vegebre near boy the rasa issue with us.
And he goes on, I'm just looking through this report he put out. He says that your report is misrepresenting the facts because there are two issues here. He says there's a NLA Claritas lottery platform, and that has been established to rake in funds. So they are the ones in charge of sponsoring some of these events. And then there is the Good Causes Foundation. Based on your checks, is there even a difference in some of these things? Because he raises concerns that you lumped it all together.
Right. So if you read section 2.3 of the NLA Act at 722, it said there shall be a lottery, right? That lottery is the Caritas. So the Caritas is a source of funding for the Good Causes Foundation. So revenue raked in from the Good Causes Foundation, from the Caritas lottery, is what they use in funding the Good Causes Foundation. So for instance, he mentions that when he came, it was just 100,000. The Caritas lottery was making. He managed through his ingenuity, thanks to him. We don't dispute that. He's done a good job with that. But the fact that you've been successful in raising funds does not mean that when the funds are mismanaged, as we insist he did, we should not raise questions about it. It's like telling us that when government develops our country, but we find issues of corruption, I'm not saying he's done anything corrupt. If we found issues of corruption, we shouldn't talk about it. No. Now, the Good Causes Foundation he raised those funds to spend on projects that he claims defines what the Good Causes Foundation is supposed to be. Now, this is what happened. The NLA has the Good Causes Foundation and it has its own operations. They registered the Good Causes Foundation on June 8th, 2022 with a board, right? With a board of trustees. So it means that the account of the NLA's Good Causes Foundation should be separate from the entity itself. So every single amount you disburse needs approval. In his situation, he says, if the threshold is 100%, I can approve it. If it is beyond 100,000, it needs to go to the board. So in a year, in 2024, for instance, they spent 200,000 cedis on the CEO's awards. It was 100,000 given twice.
Yeah, he raises concerns because I'm just looking at his statement here. And he says that they were lumped together, referring to the amounts in dispute right now. And according to him, some was spread over a period of several years, not single payments. So he's raising concerns that you misrepresented the facts because some of these payments were spread over a couple of years. Some he says 2 to 3 years. Do you still stand by the numbers?
We stand by it because the fact that we lump it together does not justify what has been done. right? We said this was done between 2021 to 2024, right? You cannot justify the expenditure because we lumped it together. The funds were meant for a certain cause. Was the fund used for that cause? No, it wasn't. If you go to corporate Ghana and say, I'm raising funds for the needy, for the aged, the mentally afflicted, and you use that fund to sponsor awards, you use that fund to give money to people to travel abroad. For instance, the Ministry of Public Sector Enterprise, a study tour of Singapore. How do you justify that? You cannot. There's no justification for it at all.
And then he goes on to state that different state lotteries, quoting worldwide in terms of what he tells us here, that there are different community projects that different state lotteries fund and not just direct welfare. And so he's questioning why you are saying that he misused the funds when worldwide there are structures like that existed.
Is worldwide law regulating his activity? What was the worldwide law regulating his activities at the NLA when he was there, or it was the NLA Act? Right? We could have easily thrown away the law and say operates by the world standards. But there's a reason we have a law to govern what you were doing. If we raise concerns about what the law says, it's better for him to say, okay, we could have amended the law to meet what the world expects of us. It is better. But so far as this law remains on our statute books, and you're supposed to go by it, and you didn't do that, you can't justify what you did. You cannot.
Well, I can see here still on this statement, it's quite lengthy. So if you can go on myjournalline.com, it's 8-page, and we're just taking it step by step to get a response from the Fourth Estate. You can also share your comments with us on all our social media platforms. We'll be glad to pose it to the Fourth Estate for you. I'm just going through some of the key things.
And just to make a little clarity as well, he claims that we confuse the good causes expenditure with the marketing activities of the company.
Yeah.
Now,
which was to solicit partnership.
If you have an entity, right, that has operational costs, for me, my basic knowledge of corporate governance, if you have an entity that runs a business, right, it will have its operational cost. If you have an entity with a non-profit unit, that non-profit unit, which you have board of directors and everything for, will have separate accounts from the main organization. Now, if you lump everything, the data we had says Good Causes Foundation expenditure 2021 to 2024. So how do you turn around and tell me that I lumped everything together? Then it means that there's a serious problem with bookkeeping, accounting at the NLA. That is what it means.
And then it's quite lengthy, some of the things he's raising concerns. I'll try to break it down step by step. I can see here he's claiming that some of the sponsorship that they actually put out were influenced by requests from the governing board and even the Office of the Chief of Staff, he says in this write-up. Did your investigation uncover any of such requests from either the board or the Office of the Chief of Staff?
Well, see, it was up to him to provide evidence of it to us. If we ask you a question, how do you justify, we asked him this question, how do you justify the amount of money you have given to the Chief of Staff's office for Independence Day celebration? These are funds meant for the poor, the most vulnerable section of our society. And if you spend it on a fanfare on Independence Day, you tell me because it came from the presidency, it is justified. No, no. You can't raise funds for the poor and tell me that you sent it to the presidency because they requested for it. You have to be accountable.
Another thing he raises concern about, just right here in his statement, is his defense, really, for giving out the money to Emmy Awards and the CEO Summit. He says here that there were marketing strategies, and that even influenced NLA revenue by some 100,000 to over 1 million Ghana cedis. And so he's arguing that these investments they made directly benefited the Good Cause Foundation.
We have issues with that. We have issues with that. You know why? What does the law say about funds raised in the name of the lottery? And I kept saying that there's a difference between operational costs, which is the NLA's operational cost. The NLA is supposed to market its brand. The NLA is supposed to create awareness about its brand and the Caritas Lottery platform. If you use funds that you raised, most of the funds that he raised, if you compare let me give you a simple maths. He claims that he raised 11 million for the Good Causes Foundation, right?
Yeah.
Our calculation shows that they spent at least 12 million cedis on some of the things we are saying are questionable ventures. 12 million at least. I will not give you the larger volume, the larger amount, because we are still looking at it. But at least what we have gone through so far, at least 12 million cedis have been spent on these questionable ventures. And he is claiming that they raised 11 million cedis from the Good Causes Foundation. At least we've been transparent. We've released the entire document. The public can be able to go through it and do this calculation on their own. If he's telling us that he raised 11 million and spent 12 million, I think my maths is not that terrible. I think they should probably rework their maths. It doesn't add up.
And this 12 million, they spent within what period?
From 2021 to 2024. I did mention that the Good Causes Foundation was registered on June 8, 2022. But they actually started spending money on it, on some of these. They started the disbursement before they even registered it. I would not fault them because even before he came in, the NLA was doing these disbursements, doing charitable works before he came in.
He details that in his statement that they were already embarked on charitable works, and then they decided to make it an official arm, which is the Good Cause Foundation. I'm just going through his 8-page document, and he cited numerous projects that the Good Cause Foundation embarked on. Toilets, boreholes, hospital, refurbished, scholarships, you named them. But he says in your article, you do not give equal representation to some of these good works.
We've published these stories in 3 parts, right? The second part of the story was actually along the full list of every single expenditure made. So how can he say that it was lopsided? We virtually give the entire data out for the public to scrutinize. So it is not correct.
Another key concern he's raising, I'm just looking at it, is about a journalistic approach.
Sound like Media, Meshes or like Nasa subscribe to a POG Political Media and the enable as well. So by your subscription. Now I say no for so answer so at me country media yibi no so I say no so who the echo and the eba na ensema the fourth estate our community so e kan here for sebe any more medidem any orphans asem more no e de betu dwa no kamia koye say ensema asamia woku enso ekotena simpi so kan no and then so hiti o ma almost so any more names any more hard evidence about we so I say and also a face S.Awuku Scàndàl na SSN kodi masanko fukuyu almoso ensa entimi anka abujama ese beto aso 1970
to telling this story, your journalistic approach to telling this story. He's concerned that staff members of the NLA, their details were published. Even, he says here, patients who received medical support. And he's wondering why you would put that out. Is that against your editorial decision?
No, it is not. We are talking about public funds. And there must be transparency in the disbursement of public funds. If there are questions asked you about public funds and how you disburse it, the beneficiaries should not have a problem about them receiving the money. They got the money, didn't they? Did we put their phone numbers out? We did not. Did we put where they live out? We did not. What we did is to put out how much they got and for what purpose. And some of these purposes are even questionable as we raised.
And he suggests that your publication gave the impression that the NLA bought awards. How do you respond to that critic?
Fosti, pardon me. So in 2023, the NLA sponsors a CEO Awards. He wins it. 2024, they sponsored, he wins it. He claimed in 2022, they sponsored, but he didn't win. But our checks from the data does not show that they sponsored in 2022. So for every year they sponsored the award, he won it. The same goes to his deputy, and Mahama, the same thing. They sponsored in 2023 some Good Governance Corporate Awards or so. She won it in 2023 and won it in 2024. They spent nearly 50,000 cedis on that. In his case, they spent about 350,000. And on both occasions, he won.
At the core of this dispute, do you believe that the Good Cause Foundation violated Act 722?
Absolutely. If you ask any lawyer to interpret this law to you and match it with the disbursements that were done, there are clear violations and breaches. That requires that they should investigate it. And I'm surprised that the internal auditor at the NLA could not spot this. Neither could the audit service spot this. And if the audit service spotted it, to the large extent, it would have appeared at the Public Accounts Committee. They missed all this for 3 years. They missed this for 3 years and allowed this to happen. I think there are questions to answer. The internal auditor should answer questions. Whoever audited them from the audit service should also answer questions.
And moving forward, how are you pushing this? Are you going to be petitioning some of the key institutions to look into this?
This is actually a tip of the iceberg. Expect something even bigger on the NLA's operations in the last 8 years.
Should we expect any petitions to the OSP, Sraj, for example?
So, like I said, for now, the story, this is just the beginning. It's snowballing. It's building up. So when we reach the crescendo, we'll take a decision on that. But I believe that the OSP and the other investigative body, anti-graft institutions are watching. So we leave them to take their action on it.
But since you believe he violated that act, decisive action from your part to see that justice is served.
So when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. For now, we are still rolling the rest of the stories.
Now, it's all about the NLA good causes. And basically, what was the mandate? The mandate was that the lottery was to support physically and mentally afflicted, needy, aged orphans, as well as destitute children. But in reality, according to the Fourth Estate's expose, millions of cedis were spent on sponsorship of elite organizations and events. Now, according to them, the amount spent on about 96 beneficiaries is 4.7 million Ghana cedis. And these are some of the beneficiaries. The reason why the Fourth Estate is raising alarm, because the Good Causes Fund ought to have dealt with individuals who are needy in society. But then look at what we find. Emmy Africa Awards received an amount of 90,000 Ghana cedis. The Ghana CEO Awards received 350,000 Ghana cedis. Africa Prosperity Network Awards received 250,000 Ghana cedis. And GIPC's Ghana Club 100 Awards received 200,000 Ghana cedis. Now, the NLC conferences also received 250,000 Ghana cedis. The Free SHS 5th Anniversary Celebration received 50,000 Ghana cedis. JIT Magazine Presidential Diary publication received 50,000 Ghana cedis. The Glitz Africa Ghana Women Award received 50,000 Ghana cedis. Asamoah Gyan's memoir project received 50,000 Ghana cedis. Independence Day fanfare, 350,000 Ghana cedis. The Aegis Office also received 570,000 Ghana cedis. And members of parliament received over 1 million Ghana cedis. Now, according to the Fourth Estate, when they reached out to the NLA boss, This was what he said. If you're going strictly by the act, it would turn out that so many things that the NLA has been doing are illegal. I realize that the very reason for the establishment of the NLA is to provide or support good causes, and that's what all lottery bodies all over the world are doing. NLA does not operate in isolation, but as part of international bodies, the Office of the Chief of Staff requests funding for some of these events. Well, that's what the Fourth Estate found as part of their investigation. But the former NLA boss, S.Awuku, in a statement published just yesterday, described the publication as misleading. And on your screens now, excerpts of that statement that he put out yesterday, just detailing some of his key concerns and why exactly he feels that the publication put out is misleading. It says, and these are portions of it, I'm just quoting for you, the Good Causes Foundation is not a lottery. It aims to develop, implement, and maintain a structure based on health, education, youth and sports development, and arts and culture. I find it unfortunate that the names of NLA staff and other beneficiaries will be flagrantly under the guise of public interest without warning or right to privacy, and I would urge them to do better. The figures quoted for some of the donations termed as glamorous are not entirely accurate, he says. He says some of these sponsorship, he puts it, were actually paid separately over a 2 to 3 year period with 100,000 Ghana cedis approval threshold. I expect an accurate portrayal of the facts I presented to the Fourth Estate and not a loop-sided story that omits the significant impact made by the foundation. He goes on to state that during my tenure, I did my best to leave the NLA in a much better state than I found it, while the Fourth Estate seeks to highlight the ills of the NLA Good Causes Foundation. I believe an accurate version would be worth everyone's while, he states. So those are just snippets, really. The response is 8-page long. The reason why we can bring you all of that, but it's published on myjournalline.com. You can go there right now as we speak. Open S.Awuku's response to the Fourth Estate and let's have a conversation. Because joining me in the studio now is an associate editor at the Fourth Estate, Set. Okay, thank you so much for your time here on The Pulse. A lot of things in this long statement. We appreciate your time, by the way. 8 pages. I'll do my best to take it one after the other so that we get proper responses from you, because according to S.Awuku in his statement, he says that your story was, quote, lopsided, omitting what he actually describes as life-saving projects and donations. And he's worried about it because he says the Good Cause Foundation actually embarked on quite a number of projects. And in this statement, I can see he has tabled quite a number of them. How do you respond to the claim that your publication is false and misleading?
I think it's basically an afterthought. I mean, this excuses he's giving is an afterthought. Because when we approached him for his side of the story, he told us that what he has done is to put the NLA's Good Causes Foundation in a state that can help society. But if you look critically at some of the expenses they made for this Good Causes Foundation, it does not in any way comply with what the law says. How do you spend money on Accra in Paris, for instance? Somebody travels to Paris for a musical concert and it inures to the benefit of the poor or destitute or an orphan in the Osu orphanage or the Kumasi orphanage. How do you justify spending 2 million cedis on an AstroTurf in his constituency? How does that inure to the poor child or the mentally afflicted? How about the 200,000 the Good Causes Foundation said is spent on a police post at the Supreme Court? How does that inure to the benefits of the poor child? There's a reason we have an interior ministry that caters for the needs of the police. There's a reason we have the local assembly with a dissect head, who is the district.
Medasi so come home na yebo Edward Medium say POG Media the about Ghana authentic political headlines are a POG Media so pet now sabet me account also who the echo and the urban na ewo my Ghana na mention some subscribers to POG Media and the enobo kwan so average your post subscription now his notification bell now share obet me so slide into the comment section or now also wait me edit komo na POG yebeba na yesu aba ba ma ho medasi so jebre now can a Jumedi, we